Today's gospel talks about when Jesus saw something that he didn't like and what he did. The particular instance I'm talking about is the time when Jesus went into the temple and saw vendors selling oxen and sheep and doves. They were selling them in order for people to buy them to make sacrifices to God. The interesting part is that they weren't really selling them to help people out who needed to buy them. They were selling them for the sole purpose of making a profit. Some wise people in the church knew that this was happening and knew that these people were selling them for quite high prices to make a great profit. The problem is this really hurt the poor people because they couldn't afford it. Jewish law at the time, however, did require people to make sacrifices to God, and if somebody couldn't afford it, then they were ridiculed for it. So people paid these exorbitant prices and went without in order to be able to make sacrifices. Jesus saw this was happening when he walked into the temple. He cleared it. He was not happy at all. This part of the gospel makes me think about the numerous people throughout history who have stood up and spoke out against injustices in the world. They haven't been afraid to stand up and say something. One good example I can think of is a man by the name of Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was not Catholic. However, we really respect and revere him. We know that he saw how white people were treating black people and how the injustices were making black people suffer. Laws were passed that oppressed black people. They weren't able to vote. All of these laws that in some way made the black community suffer and oppress them. And this eventually drove the black community and black population into poverty. Martin Luther King had had enough and started this whole revolution or this civil rights movement and protest so that black people wouldn't just sit back and take it, that they would now have a voice and be able to stand up. However, white people, the white majority, weren't too happy with this, and we do know, obviously, that later on Martin Luther King was assassinated. However, now we look back on this period in history and we're very thankful that this happened and very thankful for what Martin Luther King did. Another person we look to is a woman by the name of Dorothy Day. I did a vlog on her a while back, and she is one of the most inspirational people in our history. She fought for the rights of the poor people. If poor people were faced with insurmountable financial challenge, if they were oppressed, Dorothy stood up and helped fight for them. She helped them have a voice and not sit back and take it. It's true that I am just one person. I am not famous like Martin Luther King was, or like Dorothy Day was for that matter. And it's true that the world may not hear me or hear us and hear our cry, but the gospel does invite us always to stand up and speak out against an injustice when we see it. If we see an injustice and we turn a blind eye, then we're not doing a service to anybody. Maybe we need to speak out about it. And maybe we will experience some ridicule and some persecution for doing so. However, later on, people may change their attitudes and realize that what we did was actually a good thing. Today, this is a wonderful reading for Lent. That means we need to get rid of some of those problems and issues in our world and in our society and make it a more loving and respectful place. May God inspire us and give us the strength to stand up and speak out when we see an injustice.